Hi everybody, it's Rogan still. I don't feel great, frankly. In fact, I don't even feel good. But I guess that's appropriate enough, other than feeling sickly enough to actually take the edge off my sharp edge. I guess it's not my sharp edge if the edge is not even sharp. It's not even an edge. I guess it's appropriate to the subject matter, if the subject matter is Cannibal Holocaust. Now widely notorious horror movie, an Italian horror movie released in 1980. I think it's safe to characterize it as extreme horror, in more or less the same sense the phrase is used for a subgenre of the prose literature. A bunch of my friends trammel disreputably into presumably their betterment. Man, I'm woozy. I've seen Cannibal Holocaust a bunch of times. I have always loved this movie since I first saw it in 1995 in Los Angeles. Matt Jaisley had a bootleg of a Japanese release of it on VHS. He showed Jeremy Caston and I. It's worth talking about the background for this movie. I think it's sort of predicated on an understanding of what was going on in certain kinds of exploitative Italian movies and horror movies at that time and leading into it. Of course, the Mondo movies are sort of a central inspiration, which is a sort of a subgenre. Started with a movie called Mondo Cani, reality-based, shocking expose documentaries about the inhumanity of man towards man and animal. Is basically the framework. Mondo Cani means dog's life. The recurrent theme of the various segments in the original Mondo Cani is man's cruelty to dogs. I can't recommend those movies highly enough. The original Mondo Cani, the sequel Mondo Cani 2, the relatively light and fluffy follow-up Women of the World, the African documentary the same crew made. My disc is called Africa Audio. Usually there's sort of a mangled edit of it under the title Africa Blood and Guts. This is the best you can see. And a movie I think I would call their masterpiece, the filmmaking crew that made those movies. The fake documentary Goodbye Uncle Tom about American slavery. Really by far the best movie I've ever seen about American slavery. They're great filmmakers and these are all great movies. Without the documentary Mondo Cani being what it is and doing what it does, we would not have what is today known as an animal rights movement. I have not refreshed myself on the research on this, but you can look up the connections there. It's one of the few movies you can point to and say that it has led to changes for the better in the real world. The innate cruelty and savagery of mankind is the recurrent theme through all of those documentaries, and throughout the entire genre. Yeah, off the top of my head, I would recommend another movie called Echo, E-C-C-O exclamation point. I would recommend Shocking Asia. I think that's a great movie. The Killing of America is sort of a Mondo documentary that is a compendium of American true crime. Famed episodes in American true crime and the footage of them that you don't normally get to see. those movies, the original several Mondo movies, starting with Mondo Connie, they're definitely not what I would call respectable. They're too disturbing. But those guys didn't fake anything, with one notable exception. There's a scene in Mondo Connie 2 of a monk engaging in self-immolation that is setting himself on fire as political protest. That's fake. That specific thing is fake. It's early work by Carlo Rambaldi, as a matter of fact, and even knowing that, I can't tell how they did it, because that's how good Rambaldi always was. Usually these movies are tacky, sleazy, not ethically sound, not proactive toward illuminating the darkest parts of the world to improve it. They're just exploitation, and they're generally a mix of the real and the fake. I don't know that they tend to have issues with animal cruelty. They certainly document a lot of animal cruelty, and are often attacked on that front, and for those reasons. Usually by people who are upset and offended and not paying close attention. But that being said, these later Italian cannibal movies, there's, I don't know, maybe a dozen of them. Like other Italian horror subgenres, filmmakers stood in line to imitate each other. I think if I were to recommend only one of these movies, I would recommend Jungle Holocaust, actually. Ruggero Deodato directed that right before he directed Cannibal Holocaust. These movies almost always, pretty much they always have animal death staged for the cameras and filmed for the movie. Now, whether or not they have some kind of problem with animal cruelty is a different question. They made these movies, it seems like, basically all in the same place. That is, with the same weird group of Stone Age tribals somewhere. I can never remember where they are. The cannibals in the cannibal movies, but it's basically the same guys every movie, eating the same grubs, wearing the same makeup, same skeleton props hanging up by the same caves. Yeah, it depends on how you feel about animals being killed in ways that are intended to entertain. They're certainly not torturing animals. These are not like deep web kitten stomping videos. Off the top of my head, one of these movies, not the two Deodato pictures I just mentioned, but I don't remember which movie it is, has a scene in which they stage a mongoose fighting a cobra, so that you can see the mongoose whip the cobra's ass. Presumably the cobra might have won, but I found the sequence fascinating. I went through it pretty much frame by frame, and at least that mongoose was not going to lose a fight with any cobra ever. There's another one of these movies where they're camping out in the jungle, and the local guy's some kind of weird chinchilla kind of critter on a stake, like a leash, stake in the ground outside the tent. They're like, so the anaconda that comes creeping out of the woods in the middle of the night doesn't kill us, so kill this. And then to watch the anaconda eat this big rodent, this chinchilla type thing. Deodato's Jungle Holocaust is basically a sort of a semi-remake of A Man Called Horse. It's harrowing and gruesome and beautifully made in every way. An intense movie, frightening, disturbing. There's just not enough I can say good about these movies if you can meet them halfway, which is a question of your own inclination. Cannibal Holocaust is made consciously low-fi looking. it possibly ups the ante on rape and murder on screen on all of the previous movies, though that's kind of hard to say. The thing that makes Cannibal Holocaust the famous classic, well, two things. One, they've got principal cast members doing the animal killing a couple of times in the movie, and that is pretty unique. It's written into the script that these assholes are the kind of assholes kill animals for the cameras. The idea of Cannibal Holocaust, and this is the other thing that makes it the famous one, it's the script and story. The premise is that a group of American exploitation filmmakers present themselves as serious documentarists exploring the wildest corners of the world, are notorious for staging human atrocities against animals, burning down chunks of jungle, causing demolition, destruction, and degradation everywhere they go so they can point their cameras at it and call it filmmaking. But this time they've disappeared into the bush. Their bones are found hanging out by a cannibal cave with the cans of film. So the film is developed, and the structure of the movie is that there's a team watching the film they took before the cannibals got them to find out what happened to them. So not only do you know going in, because of the notoriety of the movie, that it's got issues with the portrayal of rape and murder and massacres and horrible effect-based human atrocities that aren't real, and also they're going to kill some animals on screen. But the structure of the story is such that it's a Blair Witch kind of found footage thing, but it's also a spiral downwards into madness and escalating atrocities, part of the characters, some of which is real killings of animals. So as you watch this movie, you are complicit in supporting this kind of movie existing at all. And the way that the movie is about the inhumanity of man being sort of intrinsic to our nature continually answers to that, and as the narrative unfolds, continually accuses us of engaging in a viciously prurient way that not only allows such movies to exist, encourages it, but sort of ensures that this kind of movie must exist because of our nature as human beings. And there isn't anything you can really compare the effect of that narrative structure and that constant escalating condemnation of you as a viewer. There's nothing you can really compare that to. Without stepping outside, I think, I mean, the other thing about Cannibal Holocaust is it's really good. It's well written, well made. Like I said, it's very lo-fi. It's a cruddy movie. It projects a creepy, cruddy, underground grunginess that literally makes you feel dirty just watching it. But, you know, Italy's the place where Pasolini got away with that shit with some pretty advanced technicians helping him out too, and the technical crew on Cannibal Holocaust, they've got badass filmmakers making this. The nasty grunginess is a very carefully sold bullshit job. It's one of my favorite movies. When I first saw it, it was an underground movie. I had to watch bootleg. Now it's a good deal more famous. Anyone who likes horror movies enough to know anything about classic, extreme European mainstream horror has at least been briefed on Cannibal Holocaust and knows what it is. I guess I've seen it 6 or 7 times over the years. Yeah, that's all the recommendation I got. There's no need to enthuse about it. I think explaining clearly what it is and the context for it lets you know everything you need to know. Um, no further recommendation is necessary, nor is any warning. You've been warned, and I recommend it. Um, and if I weren't so ill and hadn't already talked for 15 minutes explaining this movie, we'd talk about why 1980 is sort of a peak year for extreme elements in mainstream cinema. Extreme violence, real violence, pornographic elements, the genre cinema going all the way over the top in other complicated ways, but we'll get there. There's other movies coming up on my list that require this subject to be revisited. And hopefully, if and when I get that far, I'm not going to feel so fucking sick. Like I said, an existential nausea, as well as a literal physical nausea, are both entirely appropriate to watching and responding to and discussing Cannibal Holocaust. But that being said, I feel really nauseous, and I don't think I've done a very good job of talking about this movie. Unfortunately, given how much I love it, but that's okay because it doesn't need me to recommend it. This is another one like the John Carpenter movie, The Fog. It pushes its reputation out in front of it. Like a dolphin behind a torpedo. It really needs no recommendation from me, except that I guess being a person who fully supports and recommends this movie, does not have a moral or ethical problem with its content, will defend it on those grounds, as well as aesthetic grounds. That's picking a fight with other guys who love horror movies for sure. And that was always the intent of this movie and movies like this. Not only will it never cease to be polemic and divisive, it shouldn't. If I had to pick movies to show aliens to explain what humanity is, this might be one of them. There's something, even for a Crazy in the Jungle movie, which is a whole bunch of different kinds of subgenres of movie that always basically recapitulate the disintegration and degradation in the structure of Conrad's Heart of Darkness. This movie is really... if Heart of Darkness has a Heart of Darkness, then this movie is at that Heart of Darkness's darkest heart. Or it arrives there in the end. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. Or maybe you shouldn't. Your call. If you... I mean, yeah, there are people I would not recommend watch this movie, I guess I would say.